Mr. Chairman, Chris Daly, Nevada State Education Association. If I could, I'm going to try and bring up a video here. This is Andy Piper. He was hoping to make it to Grant Sawyer today, but he was unable to. He is the president of the Uniserve Council of Nevada and the Nye County Support Staff Organization and also a school bus driver. Let's see if this works.
My name is Andy Piper, president of Nye County Support Staff Organization, and I transport the most precious cargo in the world. And I've been doing this proudly without incident for 14 years as a school bus driver. In my 14 years, I have noticed, along with a justified emphasis on keeping students in school, at times there has been a loss of focus on the safety of every student and those working in public education. Recently in Nye County, I attended a training for school bus drivers and school bus aides. It left those of us disappointed and frustrated. You see, NCSSO has been working with the district to address these chronic student discipline issues on the school bus. There has not been much progress. So as we addressed our concerns, our superintendent told us, "We will discipline as we see fit. You document, you do your job, it's out of your hands then." The district's primary concern is keeping these kids in school and educating them. While NCSSO also wants to keep struggling students in school, this can't be done in a way that compromises other students and employees, their safety. That is why we support SB 386 to expand Nevada's system of progressive student discipline from the classroom to all other school facilities, including transportation. We appreciate that in the classroom, a teacher is the responsible party for implementing a system of progressive discipline so that every student can learn and be safe. This logic should apply to other school facilities. On a school bus, the driver is responsible for making sure every student gets to school or back home safely. This is a responsibility that all school bus drivers that I know take very seriously. It should follow that the driver should have the tools available to get this job done, including able to engage in a fair, progressive discipline process. In transportation, distractions can have consequences that are more grave than in any other situation. It only takes a distracted driver and a split second at the wrong time for a tragedy to strike. It is difficult to explain to someone who is not regularly on a school bus how serious this situation is. For example, student repeatedly standing up, engaging in horseplay, and ignoring instructions from the driver is endangering the other students on the bus and the public at large. School bus drivers need the tools to effectively deal with this far too common situation. Thank you.
For the record again, Mr. Chairman, Chris Daly, Nevada State Education Association, representing 40,000 teachers and education support professionals, including school bus drivers across the state of Nevada. We believe that every Nevada student deserves a high-quality public education, and we strongly support SB 386 to make improvements to Nevada's system of progressive student discipline and to expand it to other school facilities. Back in 1999, my predecessors at NSEA worked with then Speaker Joe Dini on AB 521 to create the system of progressive student discipline that included the ability for teachers to ultimately remove the most disruptive students from classroom and then engage those students in the process that Chairman Kaiser here outlined in his testimony. It was important for us to set up a system that was both fair and didn't result in having the most disruptive students coming right back into the classroom through that seemingly never-ending revolving door from the principal's office. Back in 1999, this was a very, very big priority for our teacher members. There's a mailer that I've got a copy that we sent to all of our members, sort of outlining the whole legislation back in that day. I think now when we look at how this law is working, we found that the system that was set out, this progressive student discipline system in AB 521, works best when it's taken seriously and when it's understood by all parties at a school site. While it does seem that nearly every school has been complying with the development of the progressive discipline plan, an informal survey indicates that many school sites may not be fully implementing all of the provisions of these plans or of AB 521. This probably has to do with a lack of knowledge of the existing law at many school sites. So SB 386 does a couple of very little things, but things that we think will bring a great deal of transparency and sunshine to this discipline process. One, it will require that the committee to review temporary alternative placement be appointed at the beginning of each school year, and that the names of those appointed be included in the plan. And then that plan, a copy of that plan, be distributed to every teacher and education support professional at the school site. This will, I think, in doing this, it will go a long way to educate staff, teachers, and support professionals at school sites that this process exists and it's there if it's needed. In addition, as we heard from UCN President Andy Piper, SB 386 extends this system of progressive student discipline to other school facilities and transportation. Staff members who have responsibility of student supervision outside of the classroom need SB 386 as an additional tool to create a safe school environment, whether it be in the school cafeteria, on the school yard, on the school bus, or in other school facilities. Student behavioral issues can cause very serious problems, putting other students and school employees at risk. And we look forward to the discussion of this bill. Thank Senator Woodhouse for her never-ending championing of these issues, and hope to win your support on this item. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions? Yeah, Senator Harris.
Thank you. I just wanted to better understand the bill a little bit, and some of my questions were alluded to in the testimony. So I want to start with Section 9 with regard to the appointment of this committee to review the temporary alternative placement of pupils. I didn't catch in the bill, and I will admit that I did a quick read, that those members were necessarily appointed, just that we're required to form a committee. If they're appointed, my question becomes, how long are they appointed for? And if they don't want to serve, is there a due process provision for allowing them to reject that appointment?
Again, Phil Kaiser. The idea here is that the principal typically would ask for volunteers and then appoint them officially, and they'd be members for that year. So at the beginning of each year, she would ask for people to participate in that way.
So to the extent that maybe teachers feel that they've got enough on their plate and they don't want to volunteer, what are the procedures we're going to have to work around? I don't know that we get the luxury of just assuming that we're going to fill all the spots.
So make sure you identify yourself every time, because we won't know who it is on the tape.
I'll take this one. Chris Daly, Nevada State Education Association. Often will defer to my chairman, Phil Kaiser. But the committee.
And just for the record, Phil was the one that made the comment before.
Phil Kaiser, yes.
So that way it's on the record. So.
And this is now Chris Daly?
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was Mo Dennis.
Yes.
So this committee exists. It was created in the these committees exist. They were created in the 1999 legislation. And so, I think there is somewhat of a question as to whether the committees have been appointed and are active at each and every school site, which I think it may be fair to guess that that is not the case. But in terms of the language, the change here in SB 386 is not to create these committees, but to require that the committees be appointed early in the school year, and that the names of those who are appointed be distributed to everyone on the
And
staff.
I understand that, and that's what I was actually getting to, right? But when you had mentioned that they were appointed, then that got me thinking, because I'm like, I don't remember a process for appointment. But setting that aside, I like the transparency, but I do have concerns with regard to who gets notice of the members of the committee. I can perhaps imagine a scenario where there might be a teacher that's a little reluctant to want to serve on a committee if all the students know exactly who they are, and they're going to be on the committee to review temporary alternative placement, because there may be some unhappy parents and students in terms of the decisions that committee has to make.
Okay. I think that,
So, I mean, I guess I'm reluctant to require a teacher to have to serve, and I know that you said that perhaps they're asking for volunteers, but I guess that my first question when I read that subsection F, was why require the names of the members of the committee, and if we're going to require it, who gets all that information?
the thinking behind requiring the names on the committee is to ensure that the committee
Exists?
exists.
Okay.
And that those stakeholders in the school community know that the committee exists. The issue that you raised around concerns around serving on the committee because the committee's work could be difficult,
Sure.
I think is a fair one. We had not contemplated that.
Okay, so for me, I'd like to see maybe that the committee is reconstituted every other year or something like that, so that if a teacher is going to give up their valuable time to serve, they know that they're not being stuck on a committee that they're never going to get off of. Right, and we also provide a variety of opportunities for every member of the school community to be able to serve in that capacity. So that was my concern there. And then I had another question with regard to section 11, where and it's a due process thing, and I agree with it, but again, just kind of following through to the end of the logical conclusion. So when we've got a student that's going to be excluded from school transportation, the pupil and the parent, I'm on page 7, line 10, the pupil and the pupil's parent or legal guardian must be granted an opportunity to respond to the explanation of the pupil's behavior and to indicate whether the removal of the pupil from the classroom or other premises or the exclusion of the pupil from the school transportation was appropriate in their opinion based upon the behavior of the pupil. As I read that, then the pupil and the parent get to come in and say, well, we don't think that result was appropriate. But I don't see anything that gives an alternate option for if they come in and say, well, we think that behavior was completely appropriate, or that their behavior was appropriate and should not have led to the exclusion of the pupil from the school transportation. So what do we do, or what's our process if a parent and a pupil contest the committee's decision?
This is Phil Kaiser again. The whole point of having that meeting, that conference, is for the parents and the pupil to have an opportunity to contest that temporary exclusion, right? But if in the analysis of the committee that the student should still be excluded, then they have to find that temporary and a new placement for the student.
Okay. Then my next question would be, what do we anticipate that temporary alternative placement would look like? Would it be a different placement within the school? Are we talking about sending them to a different school for education for a period of time? Are we looking at a suspension, or?
Those kind of, the suspension or expulsion are separate kind of categories for this particular case. And in the context of transportation, a variety of different options could be available to the school that might depend upon the age of the student, the availability of city transportation, whether it's a bus or the parents transporting the student to there, and some flexibility on a school-by-school basis might be appropriate.
Okay, so that satisfies that. I would think I'd like a little more clarity around what happens if there really is, something stronger that says that the committee's decision would ultimately prevail in the event that parents and the committee disagree about what the resolution was. Because when I read the bill, that wasn't apparent to me, and I would think that as a parent, if I had a child that was in that situation, I would want to know exactly what that process looked like and what my options are and what the outcomes could possibly be there. And then I just looked at the effective date is July 1st, 2017, enough time for schools to get on board with these committees, because if we're going to appoint them prior to the school year, we're approaching that new school year in August.
Right, and this is Phil again. These, the committees are supposed to be in place with the progressive discipline plans already.
Okay.
And so that would, I think, force the hand of many schools that do not already have the committee in place to put the committee in place.
Thank you very, very much.
Okay, other questions? Yeah. Senator Spearman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering here, and I'm going back to presentation we had back in February, I think it's like the 21st, 23rd, with community and schools, and we had the SAGE presentation. And one of the questions that I asked at that time was, what is the impact on classroom behavior and the way teachers deal with that of not having enough counselors in the school? And I know this bill wasn't designed to address that, but my specific question would be, have you given any thought, should this bill pass, have you given any thought to maybe doing some type of collaboration with entities such as CIS for capacity building? Because sometimes the behavior, they're acting out, but it has nothing whatsoever to do with them riding on the school bus, has nothing whatsoever to do. There could be other things, and I'm thinking about the young lady a while ago. There was a news article that talked about a young lady who was on her cell phone and wouldn't get off, and she was on her cell phone because she was looking at pictures of her grandmother who had recently passed away. So, should this pass, how do we make sure that if a student's going to be RPC, how do we make sure that during that time, if issues are identified, is there some way to collaborate with outside resources to make sure that they're getting the additional help that they need? Because if it's something that's going on around their environment, 3 or 4 days out of school is not going to solve it. So, just my question.
I mean, I think that's a fantastic suggestion. I'm sorry, Mr. Senator Chairman. Chris Daly, Nevada State Education Association, through the chair to Senator Spearman. I think that's, an excellent suggestion. I think since 1999, the National Education Association family has come a long way on supporting community schools. And so I think that probably wasn't as developed of a concept back when this legislation was initially drafted and passed through the legislature, but I think that would be a very smart addition to include during the alternative placement, for there to be some sort of contemplation or reference to community support type program and or counseling services.